growth. The real thing is not the percentage of growth. The real thing you need to think about is if you want to be Viksit Bharat by 2047, then this kind of facility, this kind of skilling effort, this kind of devotion of people who run facilities like this is very important. Skilling our population in India is going to be very important. You have 12 million young people becoming ready for a job every year. If you skill them the right way, then you can get them the opportunity to work in a state, in a city, in a village, in another town, and in countries overseas. You know, if I could just finish one thought for you. I think what you're seeing here is an example of the perfect way of thinking about skilling. You're not just skilling what you want to teach them. You're starting from the demand that exists. In this case, Chandrayaan and Tejas are certain kind of demand, but they're making products and components for various things. So they start from demand kya hai. वो डिमांड के बेसिस पे they are coming to what kind of skilling and people you need, and then they've got the right effort to skill them, and then they have this idea of hub and spoke. So they've got these 7 extension centers. So when you put all this together and you add to it the idea of producing overnight, so you also earn money from consulting for MSMEs, you earn money from production, what you're getting is the right kind of model. Skilling based on market demand, self-sustaining with very minimum additional financial support from the state. There is intellectual support and there is all her effort behind it and people like her. But the important thing is self-sustaining. So you should actually be very proud of what you're seeing here.
Sir, how do you see the India-EU trade deal and how it will boost the confidence of business sector in India?
I mean, I think all trade deals are important. And I was telling someone the other day in Davos as well, that if you look at the way trade has changed over the last few years, in the last 20 years, global trade has quadrupled, but the share of the emerging markets has also doubled from 20% to 40%. So emerging markets like India are now a key component in trade. Second, regional and bilateral deals in the last 20 years, about 100 were signed. But if you look at it now, they're doubling the number you're signing regional and bilateral. And the India-EU trade deal is an example of that. So I think lowering both tariff and non-tariff barriers on both sides will benefit both sets of people. And I think that's a very good idea. You've got to do it in a way that that takes care of the right phasing, so you don't damage domestic industries on either side. But if you have to open up, you have to open up as well.
Right.
So
Sir,
India will be needing around to create 12 million jobs annually. However, the infrastructure constraint is limiting somehow. Do you think means how should India progress there?
I mean,
also if I can include,
yes,
talking about skilling thing, Odisha is going big way in skilling and fintech thing. So, on context of India and Odisha, how you think?
Hanji. So first of all, the amount of infrastructure investment that has happened in India in the last 10 years is actually quite admirable. Today you land in Bhubaneswar, you see a modern airport, 280 airports, tens of thousands of kilometers of roads every year. ये हवा से नहीं आता, ये काम से होता है. And so the reality is infrastructure is being built. Do you want more infrastructure? Yes, because India is a large country with enormous opportunity in many different parts of the country. So my view is there are ways that jobs will get created, and we've talked about this in the bank very clearly. And there are 3 things that have to happen. One is you must have infrastructure, not just physical, but also human capital. Skilling, healthcare, education, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है. Second, you must have the right business-friendly policies. And there India has made some progress, but as you know, the Prime Minister is driving new changes in land and labor law. These are very important for continuing growth and ease of doing business in India. नौकरियां private sector में create होती हैं, नौकरियां सरकार में नहीं चालू होती. सरकार is the enabler, but jobs happen in the private sector. So what you have to do is create the right rules and regulations. That's the second pillar. Infrastructure, regulations, and then you need the financing for the private sector, whether it is finance or insurance for particularly MSMEs, which is why I was so happy to meet one MSME who was a graduate from here, who came back to Odisha from Pune and opened his own business, and in 25 years, he's now employing 60 people, including some graduates from here. Ye hai the real story. In addition, there are 5 sectors which will provide job growth, and India is active on those. The first is infrastructure, the construction, but then what it enables. For someone like her as Chief Secretary, she's not just interested in the infrastructure, she's interested in what happens with that infrastructure. If the port, if the roads, if the digitization of trade is done correctly, that's her interest, right? So it's the infrastructure. Second is agriculture. I think rural productivity and rural prosperity is very important. Small farmers need access to stronger markets and better inputs, and that's kind of what we are trying to do. If you followed my last trip to Uttar Pradesh, this is what I saw there. I'm discussing the same thing here. That's the second part. The third is primary healthcare and its delivery. Again, something that India has made many strides on, but there's much more opportunity to deliver high quality primary healthcare, and that will employ nurses, medical diagnostic technicians, midwives, not just doctors. Fourth, you need to think about tourism. India has done a fairly good job on tourism, but to me, the opportunity in tourism is still ahead. Remember that the number of tourists India get is still a fraction of what cities like New York and Paris get. And yet India has land, it has seas, it has mountains, it has fabulous people, great food, great culture, history, everything you want is here. If you cannot get to much higher numbers of tourism, then that's our opportunity lost as a country on the ground. And the last one is what you're seeing here, value-added manufacturing. Not just of the type you're seeing here, but look at your own state. It's rich in minerals and metals. This is a huge opportunity for where we are going. So I think if you get all this right, the infrastructure, both physical and human, if you get the policies right, if you get the right catalytic capital, those 12 million people have a very good future.